My people, it is a very painful thing to remember Asaba Massacre. Asaba Massacre, seeking healing. A lot of Nigerians don't know what happened. 7th October 1967, a lot of atrocities happened in the land of Asaba. Nigerian soldiers committed a lot of atrocities.
Say non the meat that is goodbye till we meet no more.
During Biafra war, Nigerian soldiers gathered all the male child and adults in Asaba and massacred them all. Then killed many people. They killed both to adults, all the male child for inside Asaba.
1970. Anya biaka ije zuta ndi aya Nigeria. Bia bulegwu. Anya mara na obo a game of death ka iba n'ime ya.
In remembrance of Asaba Massacre, on the 7th October 2022, we be sit at home in entire Biafra land. On that day, it is expected that all schools, all markets, all churches, all banks will shut down for the remembrance of Asaba Massacre. Anybody will hear my voice, making talk to him brother, making talk to his sister, making one in children, making one everybody, where they close to them. This order is coming from Biafra spokesperson Simon Ekpa. Asina nti adaharu ihe ebubisi ise soloya intiminsi. Any ear, when they hear word, as they cut head in, as when they go cut ear, full
they open fire. Where will you go? Machine gun, Gahube our people. And they were slaughtered in thousands.
Welcome, my amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are joining from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much, and remember.
All right, welcome back. Yes, as you've seen right there, Most Reverend Matthew Kuko joins us this morning. He's the convener of the Peace Committee. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning, Bishop. Well, quite interesting. Good to see you, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I don't think that...
Since I turned 70.
Yes, indeed. And you're not doing bad for yourself and for the nation, I might add. But about the significance of this Peace Committee, let's start off from there, because this is different from the last time out. So tell us about it. Why did you adopt this measure this time?
Because if you read the full text of the peace accord, it speaks to two different issues. First is it spends a lot of time, explaining things that ordinarily people should know, but also rules of engagement, rules of conduct, very basic rules of civility that by now we shouldn't be talking about them, but they still persist in our political system. But so that first part just tries to encourage politicians, to respect one another, respect the rules of the game, also submit themselves and show commitment to collaborating and cooperating with state agencies and so on and so forth in order for this process to be smooth. The second part of the accord speaks to the issues of commitment to accepting the results of the elections. So after you finish all this, it may be 2 days or 3 days today, to the elections themselves, they will sign the second component, committing themselves to accepting the results of the elections if they are judged to be free, fair, and credible.
That's a huge one there, because why did they have to wait to sign it afterwards and not in the same breath like this one?
Well, no, let me say, again, maybe I should just take you back a little bit. This Peace Committee was not supposed to have been here by now, because when Kofi Annan, the blessed memory, based on his experience from the 2013 elections in Kenya, which went awfully bad, and the number of people that died, there in the Nigerian political horizon, there was this air of, of gloom about the possibilities of, all kinds of things going on in Nigerian elections. And of course, if you recall, if you play the tape back, so many things had been expressed in 2011, and So I was summoned by Kofi Annan, whom I'd never met, although the conversation started with the Swiss embassy, focusing on what kind of lessons might we learn from Kenya, and how can we make sure that those kind of things don't happen. So Kofi Annan and the late, blessed memory, and Chibemeka Anyoku, someone me, I'd never met Kofi Annan before, and we had a conversation at the Hilton, and I was quite humbled, when they proposed that I should convene prominent Nigerians, to be able to encourage and to help us draw from an inspiration that we had with a conference that had been organized by Chief Ben Obi, which Emeka Anyoku had the honor of chairing. And if you remember, something very significant happened. It was unprecedented, and I can tell you how excited I was to open the newspaper and even to see on television General Buhari and President Jonathan hugging one another. It was, if you talked about a picture speaking a million words. So we then had to take advantage of that. And again, happily, President Jonathan had set up the Office for Inter-Party Affairs, which Chief Ben Obi was the chairman. And so that's what brought this about. So there was a signing of what was called the Abuja Accord. But there was a clause that proposed the setting up of a peace committee for the 2015 elections. So the whole idea was for us to see whether we could help Nigeria walk through this landmine to be sure that the elections, didn't spin out of control. So after we succeeded in that, it was assumed that we should all go shake hands and go home. But we decided, the chairman then decided, look, let's even have a debriefing among ourselves and say how did we really feel? And if you see the kind of people that we assembled, they were very busy people, and it was just assumed that after that everybody would go home. But we spoke to the media, we spoke to civil society groups, we spoke to the Board of Trustees of PDP and APC. We went to speak with the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dogara. Then we went to the Senate President, Bukola Saraki. Then Senator Bukola Saraki was Senate President. We had a meeting with President Jonathan. We had a meeting with President Buhari, who had just been sworn in. And one and all, across the board, everybody said, no, the Peace Committee you must become part and parcel of this process. So this is how this journey has continued and brought us to where we are today.
So this time around, you had the party chairman also part of the fray in an expanded session. So is it that they have equally significant roles to play? Because if the candidates decide, look, yes, we are the ones here, but what role do you expect those party chairmen to play here? Well,
let me give you an example, drawing from the Catholic Church, and of course, let me say from Christianity. When two people want to get married, you have witnesses, and they're not the witnesses. Even the priest is an observer of sorts, so to say, because it is the two people getting married who step forward and invite other people. So the party chairmen are important because they are more or less, holding the post. So they are more than just witnesses. They are appending their signature. It's an affirmation of the commitment of the entire party apparatus to submit to the principles that have been laid down. The presidential candidates themselves have to sign. And that's why, if you notice yesterday, it was the chairman of the APC that signed, because Asiwaju was not present. So, and of course, there were 3 other parties that didn't show up for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes people start up all these things, and then at the end of the day, either they lose steam or they step out. But on balance, we had 15, presidential aspirants that showed up, and everybody appended their signature. So it's really to give it a sense of validation.
So the party chairman of the APC signing, will they have the same import as the candidates themselves?
Our doors are open. If you remember, in the 2019 elections, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was not available. And then, of course, his political opponents began to exploit that by saying, you see, he's not committed to peace. And we said no. My friend Obieze Kwesili, who was also a presidential candidate, was not available. But our doors still remain open. And, Atiku Abubakar came to the Secretariat of the Peace Committee, appended their signature. The same thing with Ngozi Obieze Kwesili. So our doors are still open. And I told the chairman of the APC that much, that if Asiwaju comes back from his trip, our doors are open. his signature's place is still there.
Okay, so this time they will sign twice. The second part being agreeing to comply with the results of the elections if they consider it free and fair. So why go this way? Is it that the first model or method didn't achieve the kind of results you wanted?
Let me, we're very much encouraged, first of all, by the developments that have taken place in INEC, and here I would like to actually commend the President and the National Assembly for the progress they've made so far in signing the act into law. The President also has made commitment in his Onga speech, which suggests very clearly that Nigeria is committed to deepening democracy. The real challenge for us is to get the political actors themselves, to sign on to, because like I said, the first part is just a commitment to some of the very basic ingredients of politics and any form of human relationships. There are rules to every game. But as we can see, we have come from a very tortured past, where people, and this is a country where people don't take the law seriously, whether it's the Constitution or whatever, and that our responsibility is, as I say, to ensure that the actors, in the long run, can suffer penalties. And these penalties should include, by any stretch of the imagination, a clear commitment that the things you sign for, to cooperate with the civil authorities, to obey the law, to make sure that you don't instigate violence. And I'm hopeful that going forward, if we have a tribunal or if we have a commission dealing with electoral offenses, that it will be possible. This, for me, is a dream. I can speak, for the Peace Committee, and indeed for all Nigerians, that people must begin to suffer penalties. That you can actually have your presidential ticket, whether you win or you lose, taken away from you. You can have a gubernatorial ticket taken away from you because you've not played according to the rules of the game. I mean, you score a goal, the fact that there was a foul means the goal is annulled. So I think we must more or less, it's almost like a VAR. That's where we should be moving to, because our people have shown absolutely no commitment to respect for rule of law.
Well, that's an important component to consider moving forward. But let's bring in Lagos. They've got questions as well.
We really appreciate what you're doing, Reverend, and it's amazing that this is even happening, especially at this time and since 2014, which the National Peace Committee was set up and has been sustained. But before I come to the question that I wanted to ask you earlier, so the last bit that you just spoke about, now it's very exciting for me, because we've been talking about an Electoral Offences Commission for quite a while. So are you saying that the documents they sign could eventually be a kind of evidence in court for concerning whatever it is that they commit themselves to? Is it something that will be justiciable in future? Is that what you're saying?
I'm looking forward to that. We cannot live in a country where people live by very flagrant disobedience to law. It's just not possible. And democracy focuses on rule of law and processes. And people cannot just sign on to these things, and they get away with them without consequences. So that's why I'm saying I'm really and truly looking forward to a situation where the National Assembly itself, that is the beneficiary of these processes, and is also supposed to be responsible for legitimating processes by the quality and kinds of laws that we make. So yes, that is a goalpost we should be heading for, so that politics does not becomes more respectable, becomes more honorable. There are too many. Politics is the only thing. If you want to be a mechanic, you probably show evidence that you've learned your trade somewhere. If you want to be a tailor, you have to show evidence you've learned your trade somewhere. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to show evidence. Now, politics is the only thing you don't need a qualification to participate in. The result is that, especially in the kind of environment that we live in Africa, too many criminals have filtered and found their way into politics. So I think it is our responsibility to create the kind of laws and environment that will make it very difficult for criminals to walk through this system, and that people cannot go away with a price that is tainted. And I think that the late President Yar'Adua of blessed memory was honest enough from day one to say that I won this election, but I am worried by the kind of price that I'm holding, and I will try and set up mechanism for making sure that we resolve these issues. And that's how I was lucky to have been appointed, because I served with Justice Uwais, to look through all these distortions in in the law. So for me, that's a goal that we should all be headed for.
Well, the other angle to that, is that most of the people that form in trouble, they aren't the ones that, really sign the papers. As a matter of fact, what one would see is that most of the time, the conversation concerning the peace committee's objectives don't generally drill down to the boys and the people, the girls who are the cannon fodders, if we can use that word, the people who go around campaigning for this, campaigning for that. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, is part of the issues that was raised by the chairman of the National Peace Committee about, the social media, fake news, and all of those things. How does that signing play on these two issues?
Look, the signing is, in my view, is symbolic, but I think it's also a commitment to good behavior. There's a lot of domestic violence going around. All the people, men and women who are involved in domestic violence, didn't sign on to that when they were getting married. They signed on to certain levels of commitment. And like I said to people, and I said, severally, elections are like a wedding. A wedding is not a marriage. A wedding is just a ceremony. Elections are just a process. And as we have seen, severally, the promises that politicians make when they are campaigning take a completely different tone when they win elections. And this is why, like they say to you when you enter a plane and the plane is about to land, the cabin crew will always tell you, to be careful because luggage may have moved while the flight was on. So sometimes it is important that we understand that people make these promises. Very often they have no intention of keeping the promises. But it is our vigilance. It is our collective vigilance to make sure that we hold their feet to the fire. That is why civil society all of us cannot just be spectators. We tend to assume that after we've elected these people, they will be of good conduct, they will govern us well. They've shown no inclination to anything of that sort. So it is in our interest. The media, civil society, the judicial process, we must have the confidence to step up and challenge these people if and when they go wrong. So if you talk about the small people in the system, again, it is if you have an institutional capacity that gives you an opportunity to return to the scene of the crime and gather evidence. And this gathering of evidence means that you will have an opportunity to track and listen to stories of who did what. If a fire was lit in somebody's headquarters, who lit it? How did it happen? So for me, those are the issues. If you are not going to, the important thing is to create a deterrent and to have a deterrence culture. And people will know. You will never catch every criminal. But the law must be of such quality that somebody knows that you cannot get away with this. And the day that somebody is pulled out of the National Assembly, and I think it has happened severally, the day somebody is pulled out of the National Assembly, pulled out of Government House, on grounds of established evidence of malfeasance, that day people will begin to learn a lesson, and our democracy will continue to grow. And we can move away from this obsession of calling on religious leaders. Politics is not about moral appeal, it's about law and its enforcement.
Bishop, first of all, good morning, and accept my belated wishes on your 70th birthday, and thank you for all that you do. I'd like to talk about a deterrence culture and holding the feet to the fire, but there's something just as interesting that I'd like you to first of all react to, which is a comment from one of the presidential candidates who said signing of peace accords show that elections in this country are war. And I'd like to relate that to the fact that we don't quite see election observation, signing of peace accord, election monitoring in other countries that we try to copy, to adopt their models. But rather, it's done in Nigeria and some other parts of Africa, which suggests pretty much that we can't put our house in order by ourselves. Does this worry you, Bishop? And if it does, what are your thoughts in that regard?
Well, thank you very much. The portal is still open for the collection of birthday gifts, so those are not closed. Don't worry. We're still open for business.
Noted, sir.
But on a more serious note, look, I mean, let's concede two things. The president delivered an address at UNGA, and it's a fantastic speech. But it also speaks to the fact that he's not making excuses, because we cannot be part of the international community and be involved in making excuses. The quality of our democracy does not meet even local standards. That's the truth of the matter. We are operating in a very convoluted environment. Look at Kenya, for example. I mean, Kenya made a lot of mistakes, but guess what? I mean, Kenya already has only, what, 5 or so presidents since their independence on December 13th, 1963. What's his name? Jomo Kenyatta was prime minister for 1 year, then he became president. But look at, when you transport that to Nigeria, how many, we can't even call our we can't even speak about Nigeria's presidents, because there is a convoluted vocabulary. There are presidents, there are heads of state, there are military presidents, there are heads of government. So we don't even have that sequence in the conversation. So the point is that in every sense of the word, very few African countries have such a checkered past as Nigeria has. The series of military coups, the distortion of the political environment, the lack of commitment to law and due process, the inability of this country having a very steady National Assembly. The result is that we are what we have today. So the National Peace Committee, in my view, is like a midwife. By now, we should have been out of the way. For me, it's not. I don't imagine that we will continue to remain embedded in the political processes of Nigeria. But the truth of the matter is that the Nigerian political elite have shown no commitment to the rules of the game of politics. There are too many people who just see politics as a transaction. Just imagine an entry fee of 100 million naira to be able to buy a phone. Imagine the huge amounts of money that people are asked to pay. You know, it's just like going to watch a match or going to a nightclub or whatever. If you charge that much fee, what are you going to expect, you know, when you enter the hall? So we are now hearing stories of the problems of vote buying and so on. If it costs so much to enter the door, why would we expect anything less? So the Peace Committee is just a moral authority. We're encouraging our political class, but sooner than later, it is important that Nigerians take full charge of insisting on minimum conducts that are acceptable to us as a people. You know, because what is going on in Nigeria in the name of politics, it falls far below the threshold.
Well, yeah, we need to go to break now, but we'll return. And then the last the conduct between former President Jonathan and the current president, we'll look at that scenario and how it played into what's going on today. But that will be when we come back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Wake up the champion in your child. Give them energy to go further. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child.
Hi, I'm Pato Rankin, and they don't call me World Best for no reason. I only deal with the best. Be it auto or business, 100% claim is always guaranteed.
Welcome to World Class Insurance Services. We are Anchor Insurance.
Where insurance truly works.
I'm not stalking him. I'm about to serve better breakfast.
Buy any monthly data plan and get up to 5 GB free to use on social media. Airtel, the smartphone network.
8-year-old Fatima was forced to flee her home after it came under violent attack. She found safety in an IDP camp but was sadly left orphaned. She says the only thing that could make her happy is if someone bought her new shoes. Displaced orphaned children like Fatima need our help. When you donate to UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, you can help give IDPs like Fatima the support they need to rebuild their lives, including shelter, food, clothing, and medicine. Please donate today via donate.unhcr.org/Africa or via direct bank transfer with account name UNHCR Special Account number 000-270-6104. Bank name Standard Chartered Bank.
Good afternoon, sir. Please, I need a room to rent in your house.
Okay, where do you work?
I'm the nurse.
That means you won't owe me rent. Congratulations, young lady. You have yourself a house.
Well, thank you so much, sir. So, how much is the rent?
90,000 naira. Oh, but wait, where are you from?
I am from Akamata.
Akamata what? Akamata in my house? If you know how you got into my house, please get out right away. My spirit and that of Akamata people don't have anything to do together.
Sir, what have I done?
Your people from Akamata are known for bad things. That is what they represent, and you can't live in my house. Just get out right away.
What's going on?
Leave my house, young lady. Yes, our differences extend to our languages, culture, food, and even belief. But we are bound together by the cord of love. With one heart, with one voice, we will make Nigeria a hub of greatness, a place where the people live as one.
This message is brought to you from the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the UK government.
Wake up the champion in your child. Give them energy to go further. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child. Milo!
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We are with Most Reverend Matthew Kuka, convener of the National Peace Committee. Bishop, now, in 2015, when President Goodluck Jonathan did call now President Buhari, congratulated him, that to a lot of people, that was a typology, that was a game changer to so many things that people had known before, the impression of how we had done things here before, in politics particularly. So, would we consider that scenario now a culture? Is it evolving into a political culture? Because to a large extent, that should be some kind of standard that we should be looking at. But how significant or how deep or where, what kind of role does that play in the scheme of things? Now, do politicians now see that as at least the minimum standard that they need to comply with as a result of all of this?
No, the Jonathan scenario is different. And I don't want to say they don't make them like Jonathan anymore, because it's about character. And I think Jonathan's advantage was, apart from his own personal conviction, he came from a background that didn't threaten anybody. And I say this because hegemonic politics, which is the politics of dominant groups, whether they are ethnically based or whether they are religiously based, whichever way they conceive their hegemony, has consequences. So when you want to break away from that, it has consequences. So the Ijos didn't threaten anybody. They had not created a hegemony. And now, if a president from northern Nigeria, and you all you need to do is to push back and see the nature of the debate and the argument from northern Nigeria since Jonathan, or even after the end of Yaradua's term. Oh, it's our turn. We didn't finish our turn. Most of that conversation is still playing out today. And I think that President Jonathan's significance lay in the fact that he contested an election. Okay, it wasn't as if he was like Buhari, he didn't have any chance to have another term, because that induces a certain kind of behavior that is not the same with when you are contesting. So what Jonathan did, the significance is profound. And I'm not beatifying him, but I'm also just saying that you can trace the trajectory. So if you were, let's say, a northerner or somebody from the southwest, let's say the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Hausa Fulani, or by whatever name, all these hegemonic blocks sometimes will not allow you to give up power because of the benefit, the benefits that are accrued from an entire group of people. But as I said, to answer your question, it comes down to what kind of convictions do people have? And Jonathan made the point, and it's an eloquent testimony. My ambition is not worth the blood of any citizen. Now, we have a system in which, for many politicians, there is no limit to what their ambition can, as long as it is realized. So I think, Nigerians are always quick to score themselves. We are far away from, we have not even come anywhere close to that. Otherwise, we will not be having this conversation, because people will be saying, well, the North, you've had your turn, or this group, you've had your turn, but that's not where we are at in Nigeria. And because, again, like I said, the Nigerian political environment is peculiar. It's not like any other. This is not Kenya. This is not Senegal. This is Nigeria, where stealing of resources and thieves are hiding in plain sight, where people show you very clearly you are not expected to enter this political room and come out empty-handed. So where corruption and we are saying that we are running out of resources in Nigeria, but there is still a lot to be stolen. If they are wearing all these people who are running around and want to govern us, it's not enough for us to ask what have they been doing with their life. But it is that this is politics of access. So, and the access when it comes to Nigeria is completely different, because the Nigerian president, on a good day, has the powers that no president in the world has. I don't know whether the man in China has those kind of powers, but that is just that you can assign so much to an individual by just a stroke of the pen. Are you answerable to anybody? Absolutely not. There may be institutions that pretend that they are answerable to, but it's not the case. So you can understand why the Nigerian system is so much convoluted and will not admit of this kind of thing. So Jonathan signposted a possibility, but I don't think we can assume that we have come to a point in which the Nigerian politician is ready to stand back and say, no, this is the way it should go.
All right, let's bring in guys from Lagos again.
All right, Bishop, let's now talk about the culture of deterrence. It is often said that the morning shows the day, and we can just pick a few examples from the consequence of the conduct of primaries in the main political parties and look at the language, of exchange between the political actors. We can also look at the conduct of the off-cycle elections, where there was vote buying reported, and still we have not seen any significance in terms of prosecution of those who were found wanting. And only recently, the Commission also talked about how some political parties have overshot their spending limit, but yet refused to name those political parties. How does this, what does this portend, rather, for the peace accord that has been signed, and what may be the conduct of the politicians in the 2023 elections?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important not to ascribe to the Peace Committee powers it doesn't have. It's not a body that is set up by law. I mean, it's just a group of respectable Nigerians who only exercise a certain level of moral authority. We cannot replace, moral suasion is not a substitute to law. It's not enough for priests, and we've been shouting priests and imams have been shouting about do not steal, but that's all we can do. We can't follow anybody to the bank with the proceeds of their loot. It is really the kind of architecture of consequence that is on the ground. That's what matters. But as we are seeing, even the judiciary itself, that is supposed to be the hope of the common man, as is always said, has become encumbered with all kinds of characters who approach the courts with all kinds of frivolities. We have seen even a tendency to embed fake judicial processes in the political system. So the point to make is that, look, people talk about institutions, and again, Kenya has given us a very good example about institutions such as the judiciary and their capacity and their ability to deliver. But the fact of the matter, I'm sure if you speak to the people in INEC, they will tell you how inundated they are with frivolous court cases and so on and so forth. How to weed that out of the process and allow INEC and other institutions to focus on what they were called upon to do, that's the challenge. So you must take the Nigerian political system with a very convoluted, corrupt system that is Nigeria today. How you walk through all that is not a child's play, and we must not put our goalposts so much within our sights, because it's going to take us. This is a very, very long journey that we are going to, participate in. It's not something that one government can pretend it wants to resolve, because the problems have become so embedded, and the corruption is of such depth and magnitude that it's not about one political actor just hoping and praying that he's going to fight corruption, as we had and as we now see. So we just have to continue to renew our commitment and our energy to this process, and like I said, and that politicians will come close to even what ordinary Nigerians themselves have in terms of their commitment to democracy.
Well, Reverend, all of these things that you have said, I mean, you've spoken quite copiously and confidently about the need for us to do certain things right. But, you know, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as it currently is, shares some ethos with the National Peace Committee. For instance, the National Pledge, National Anthem, they all talk about peace and unity and all those things. And there are things enshrined in the Constitution at all itself. But it would seem as if the Constitution says some things, and you've spoken to the fact that some people are just generally, lawless and all of that. But then, on the one hand, the Constitution says this. On the other hand, it will seem like people are behaving exactly at variance with the very things that they swore to do. Is there a way, in your opinion, where we can institutionalize peace, institutionalize development, institutionalize good governance, so that the moment you get into office, you don't need to be told, you don't need to be cajoled. In fact, the moment you show interest in politics, these things are supposed to be sine qua non in your life. It ought to be seen. Is there a time or a way that you see that in this nation, peace is institutionalized, development is institutionalized, good governance is institutionalized for posterity's sake?
I'm laughing because the assumptions you have about peace are not real. Remember that the only reason why the devil is here is because they fought a war in heaven. We will never attain that state of peace, because if that is the kind of peace you want, then you go to the graveyard, because there's nobody to say anything. As long as human beings exist, look, I always tell people, if in your house you have your first child is 5 years, another one is 2 years, another one is 1 year, by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, the house is quiet. But when your children are 20, 17, 15, you cannot tell them, stop watching television, it's time for bed. They'll tell you, no, Daddy, I want to finish watching this cartoon. It's a bargain, it's a negotiation. Look, peace is not a destination. In a way, it's not a point you just say you're going to attain a kind of nirvana, It's not like that. It would be an extraordinarily boring life if we didn't have. Then what would the courts be doing? What would the police be doing? This is who we are as human beings. So the question is, how do you regulate the ring in a way that there are penalties? They say in Hausa, what is the difference between boxing and fighting? It is that with fighting, somebody says you can bite. But with boxing, as you saw with Mike Tyson, you bite somebody's ears, he had to be fined $3 million. The question is, what are the consequences for bad behavior? And secondly, when victims of bad behavior experience their victimhood, where can they go to? The British set up in the 80s what they call a Commission for Racial Equality. And I've been saying we have a National Human Rights Commission, but the National Human Rights Commission probably just, it's a bureaucracy. So it's probably waiting for people to write petition and allege all kinds of things. But it is that we need a platform, we need a visible opportunity where people can say, look, this is what has happened to me. This is how the redress I seek. So people will know peace if they can go through a process that hears them out. So I think we're really responding to the whole question of what kind of institutions do we have in place and what are the consequences for bad behavior. People drive badly everywhere in the world. But it's only in Nigeria that you drive badly and you can actually slap a policeman for daring to question you for driving badly. Elsewhere, because as you see, when Nigerians travel out of the country, they don't have a choice but to behave. So the question is the weakness of the architecture, of state architecture that we have that are so severely compromised that instead of the rule of law, what you have in Nigeria is the rule of men and women. So the result is caprice, and it's the result of the volatility we have in the system where there's just so much stress day in and day out. But as for a situation in which you will just enter a door and everything is in peace, it's not going to be possible, and it won't happen. It will not be us as human beings.
Well, clearly a lot will be dependent on INEC and the police to ensure that they play a huge role in these elections. But what is your impression about the turn of events in the build-up to these elections, having seen the way the registration, the latest voter registration has gone, the participation, the interest on the part of the young people this time?
Look, you know, frankly, like I said, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I wish that the politicians were half as enthusiastic, one about this country, one about this democracy, as we ordinary Nigerians are. They will go with the price. But I think that what we are also seeing, and it's new, and it's also one of the things that played out in Kenya, we have to figure out what to do with the energy of these young people. First of all, they're not just young. It's not a biological issue. It is that people are pretty well wired. They know how the world is set. They know about the possibilities. Okay? And like you had the little girl speak yesterday in her speech, he said, look, by our time, when I'm president in 2050 or so, I'm not going to be going around with 20 drivers, because there will be no drivers. It is that, look, the young people will set the pace. And it is a question of looking at the mirror and asking ourselves, when is enough enough? When are we going to be able to have a sense of respect for ourselves? And victims of domestic violence, I mean, in the Catholic Church, we say that marriage is indissoluble, that it cannot be dissolved. But if a woman comes to me with a battered face and says, I cannot tell her to go back and stay because the Bible says you must stay married. Marriage must give you certain kind of... So the embedded sense in this transaction of politics that I do this and this is what I get in return. We cannot be voting and be dying while you and your children are smiling all the way to the bank and traveling across the length and breadth of Europe. It is not possible. It will have consequences. And I think that that energy of young people and the enthusiasm we've seen, those 95 million voters must now say to themselves, look at themselves in the mirror and say, what am I worth? What kind of life do I want? I'm not listening to the promises of these characters. I'm not interested in what they're pretending they represent. I'm not talking about their past. I'm talking about the future. So it's not a question of what this guy is promising, but I'm also asking myself, given the opportunities that I have, given the quality of education that I have, who gives me, I'm not asking for jobs. So don't tell me about jobs. I'm just asking for a space that can enable me to thrive. That's why the president's speech on social media on Onga was very interesting, because he admits that technology sets limitless frontiers, and technology actually moves faster than the human imagination. So a lot of these people who are in power, they don't understand tomorrow. They have no idea about what the future looks like. They're just thinking that nepotism, their children, their wives, their mistresses, and that being in power is about being surrounded. It's not going to be. Times have changed.
Yeah, well, a very fine place to let it go. Most Reverend Matthew Kuka is the convener, a National Peace Committee. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Thanks for...
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you, and remember this. Bye-bye. See you again.